Before I start, I have a very quick announcement to make. Skip to this timestamp if you just want to get into the video. This channel will see some change, especially concerning its content. While I will continue to make Monster Hunter specific content, I also want to expand and incorporate other games and franchises as well. I have a video cooking right now that will probably come out in the next couple of weeks. Stay tuned and don't be sad if you sub for Monster Hunter only. Monster Hunter content is here to stay. Alright, I know that I will get a lot of hate for this one, but I'm not the type to care a whole lot about like ratios. There are a couple of things I have to get off my chest before Monster Hunter Wilds drops, and it has to do with Capcom's latest entry, Monster Hunter Rise. As you might have guessed, I've been a fan of Monster Hunter for a very long time now. Ever since the PSP and Wii days of Monster Hunter, I've been hunting and crafting my way through countless hours of content. Even in modern titles, I've spent hundreds if not thousands of hours battling monsters. I love this franchise with all my heart, and it will probably be one of the main ways I enjoy my gaming time for decades to come. With all that said, I have something to confess. I didn't even know I had to make this video a couple of months ago, but it just hit me while I was hunting a Kezu in Rise. While a lot of you who watched my last video about me hating on the Spirit Birds might have guessed that something like this was coming, for a lot of people out there the notion of not enjoying Rise or some of its mechanics was outlandish. I sat down and actually analyzed what it is that bugs me about Monster Hunter Rise, and what better time to discuss my feelings about that game than mere months away from the release of what will probably be the best and most respected title in the series. Now, why do I think Wilds will be so good? It's because it's a lot like World and Iceborne, just bigger and better. And that's exactly the reason I dislike Rise so much now. It's nothing like Monster Hunter World. Now I know that all of the Rise fanboys are going to hate me for this one, but I'm fine with that. I'm all about speaking my truth, and I'm not looking for false validation from anyone. If you, dear listener, are mature enough to accept someone's opinion without resorting to threats and hate, then I implore you to stay and listen to what I have to say about the topic. And at the end of the video you can leave a comment, and I will try my best to respond to every single one that actually wants to engage in conversation about this. If you want to leave a comment and tell me how big my forehead or how small my dick is, please go ahead and do so as well. Even those voices are allowed in my comment section. I don't support censoring at all, so feel free to speak your mind. Now, let's get into the actual meat of the conversation, starting with my first gripe about Rise. This would be the system it was primarily made for. As I said, feel free to argue with me on this one, but be aware that at least when it comes to this first point, you're dead wrong, if you do want to argue at all. Monster Hunter Rise was primarily developed for the Nintendo Switch. We all know, or at least should know, that the Switch isn't even close to being a powerful console, in any acceptable measure. And even though I love laying in bed, playing something on the system before going to sleep, my choices for an acceptable and well-playing title are very limited. I love the Switch when it comes to playing graphically and mechanically simple games, like the newly released Dragon Quest III remake, as well as other classics or games like Pokemon and indie games. When it comes to AAA releases though, it becomes a little bit more dicey in which games function flawlessly and which don't. When it comes to Rise itself, there is no point in arguing that it hasn't been neutered in order to run on the Switch. Mechanics have been simplified, areas have been cleared of detail and life, as well as the graphics having received a huge downgrade from Monster Hunter World. To be honest, this issue is even worse considering Monster Hunter Generations runs on the same system while only being a 3DS port. And even in being so, it runs, looks, and plays better in every way compared to Rise. When comparing the graphics themselves, you can clearly see that the fidelity is slightly better in Rise than it is in Generations. But fidelity isn't everything. Generations has so much more life and joy baked into each area of the map, and it's not even a contest in my eyes. Rise just seems like it's connecting bland battle arenas to each other in a somewhat coherent layout, while every area in Generations makes the overall map feel like it's an actual place with its own history. And not only that, even on a more fundamental level, the maps in Generations look at least 100x better when just considering the colors themselves. The contrast is absolutely stunning when comparing it to Rise. And again, it's not even close. On a side note, even the original monster designs of Rise don't even come close to World or Generations. While I do have to concede that Tetranodon and Gossarock are top tier designs, it doesn't take much for them to easily be outclassed by even the most basic designs of their predecessors. Dodogama, Nergigante, Tobi-Kadachi, Legiana, Valhazak, Anjanath, and Odogaron are some of the best designed monsters in the whole series, all of them stemming from World. And Glavenus from Generations will forever be the coolest monster ever, right after Lagiacrus. So even design-wise, Rise loses to its forefathers easily. And overall design isn't even dependent on the system it was made for, considering Monster Hunter Generations and all that. The other side of the coin when considering monster design is of course the fight itself and how it plays out. And sadly, I have to inform you that Rise is way too easy and is even further trivialized by the wire bugs. But before we speak about those, let's talk about the monsters first. Everyone who has played Monster Hunter Freedom Unite knows the dread of going up against Tigrex. Not even just your first time, but every single time you face that monster in MHFU, you are overwhelmed by this feeling of helplessness. That's exactly what I'm missing in Rise. Most, if not all of the monsters in Rise have been slain by me on the first try and without much trouble. And for everyone except people whose first title in the franchise was Rise, it probably played out the same. Even World, which admittedly was way too easy during the base game, at least became harder whenever Iceborne came out. Sunbreak did nothing to increase the challenge in Rise at all. All it did was kind of increase the health pool of the monsters to fit into G-rank content. But the actual mechanical difficulty stayed pretty much the same. And to me, that is a huge letdown. Not only do we have the option to infinitely stock up on potions through the in-map camp, and not only can we change weapons and armor to fit each specific monster in a multi-monster quest, but on top of that, the monsters themselves don't pose any threat to the player at all. And to be fair, I was super hyped to go up against Rajang in G-rank, only for it to feel like I was taking advantage of a stupid monkey because I possessed the power of opposable thumbs. Like, actually opposable thumbs. And it's not just Rajang that gave me that feeling. Lots of other monsters just felt like 12k hit points I will have to stab through to advance to the next pool of health to deplete. There was no preparation, getting the right weapons and armor, crafting specific items for the hunt, or learning the fight through multiple failed attempts. Most monsters in Rise are easily beaten by standing and hammering the attack button and occasionally wire falling. That only gets even more boring by engaging in the Spirit Bird mechanic. I resorted to just downloading a mod that gives you a fat bird at the start of every hunt after a while. If you want to check my thoughts on that topic, my last video was about exactly that. Now, is the extra health and stamina needed to beat Rise and Sunbreak? No, not at all. Even if you take a lot of damage, you aren't limited to your on-hand inventory of healing items. Your item box is right there for you. At least in World, where you actually have the same ability to get basically unlimited healing items, the mechanical difficulty is high enough for you to be able to actually card 3 times and be sent back to the lobby. I don't know, man, call me weird, but power fantasy games aren't really my thing. I just despise playing easy games as I feel like I'm accomplishing nothing. With games like Rise, at the end of the gaming session, I just sit there and think I could have done literally anything else for the last hour and feel way more satisfied than I do right now. But after all, I know the difficulty argument will have a bunch of fingerless noobs with their panties in a bunch, so enough about that. Let's instead talk about one of the main points that makes the combat so easy. The wire bugs. And no, not the wire bug arts. I love the hunter arts of Generations and Generations Ultimate, and I would love to see more mechanics like those in the future, even the wire bug arts. It's the basic wire bug abilities like dashing away, repelling, and wire falling that make Rise so easy. At least for me, someone who has been playing Monster Hunter for over a decade. I know, you can congratulate me on my Unk status, These options just make the whole game so damn easy it becomes less fun the more you master them. And no, saying just don't use it then doesn't make any fucking sense. Why would I purposefully not engage with intended game mechanics to cuck myself? If it comes to that, I'd rather not play the game at all. Now there are a couple of other talking points like the non-existent tracking, instead you just know where the monster is at all times. I really enjoyed what World did with the scout flies and information levels and so on. Losing all that for a stupid owl that just tells you where all the monsters are is a real downgrade, and I can't take anyone serious who defends this decision. By that point, just spawn me in an arena with the monster, no need for whole maps or areas. With all that said, let's get to my last point I want to make about Rise. It just doesn't feel right. And yes, you are completely correct, this isn't something I can back up with well-researched and sound arguments, it's something purely subjective to my emotions toward the game. This section is less about me trying to prove to you how bad Rise is, but more about how bad it feels for me personally. Ever since I first played Rise on the Switch when it released, up until last month when I last played it without the express purpose of capturing gameplay for a video. All that time, somewhere deep inside of me, something felt off. I just loved the gameplay loop of Monster Hunter so much that I had convinced myself that Rise is at least as good as any other Monster Hunter title. But with time, I realized that whenever I booted up the game, I had this feeling of dissatisfaction. Something deep inside of me telling me I'd better be off playing any other Monster Hunter title or even something completely different altogether. The nail in the coffin for me was when I pressed play on Steam, saw the Monster Hunter Rise main menu, and instantly thought to myself, you know what? The living room is in dire need of cleaning. I should do that and play some games after. When that thought crossed my mind, I actually put the controller on my desk and I contemplated the actual reasons for forcing myself to play Rise at all. I realized that every time I started up Rise, I subconsciously forced myself to ignore other games in order to play Monster Hunter, because I've grown so accustomed to playing Monster Hunter so much. Me playing Rise for the last couple of months is also the reason why I haven't been making videos. My experience playing and not enjoying the game directly caused me to lose interest in making videos about Monster Hunter. Only now that I realized that I don't have to force myself to play what is in my opinion the worst entry in the series, I recognize that I do still love Monster Hunter, as well as talking about it and making content about it. It is Rise specifically that I do not enjoy, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who thinks like this. While I did have some fun with the game, most of it was fleeting and ultimately vapid. Before I ever boot up Rise again, I'd rather play anything else. If you are new to Monster Hunter and are looking for an entry point into the series, I can only recommend World if you are looking for the most complete experience, or Monster Hunter Freedom Unite if you are a true lover of classic games. And with that, I humbly thank you for watching this video. Consider leaving a like and subscribe for more Monster Hunter content. I'm glad to be back. Bye bye.